Now, before I start talking about this interesting game called Outlast, I first want to say that it's very difficult to make a video about this game. Or it's rather difficult to make a good video about this game. And this is mostly because of the lack of some very certain key elements that there are in most horror survival games. But I will come back to those missing gameplay aspects later in the video. For now, I just want to talk about what kind of game Outlast is and how the player gets manipulated into believing in things that aren't true or never actually happen in the game. In Outlast, you take the role as a journalist called Miles Upshur, who is trying to uncover the dark secrets of Mount Massive Asylum. As we arrive at the asylum, we equip our only and most important item, being a video camera. Now, this camera functions as both our primary light source and recording device, making it almost necessary if we want to complete our mission and survive. Upon entering the asylum, everything seems normal. Sure, it's a bit run down, but everything is...
They killed us. They got out.
Yeah, things aren't exactly normal at this asylum. And it doesn't take very long before things take a turn for the worse when we encounter Chris Walker for the first of many times. After being thrown out of the window, we meet a new and important character for the story called Father Martin. But how and why are all of these characters important for the manipulation aspect of Outlast that this video is focusing on? After deactivating the security system in an attempt to escape from the asylum, we get assaulted and drugged by Father Martin, which alone is pretty weird. But what's even more interesting is what we see before fading out.
The only way out of this place is the truth.
What you have just witnessed is the first appearance of who the game calls the Walrider, which is the main enemy and cause of all of the twisted things that have happened in the asylum, but more on that later. For now, let's just focus on how we get out of here and avoid this clearly supernatural threat. When we wake up from our assault, we find out that we have been transported into the lower levels of the asylum with all of the very kind and healthy patients. With the same goal of finding a way out, we begin to make it through the asylum. We see strange things and are constantly attacked by these mutilated and hostile psychopaths. And once again have a very unlucky counter with our big police boy Chris before getting launched even further down into the asylum due to an explosion happening right in front of us. It's no surprise at this point of the game that something is clearly wrong and that we have to find a way out as soon as possible. That is, if there even is. After making a successful escape away from the lower part of the asylum, we arrived at a different lower part of the asylum, being the sewer system. And unlike most other places we have explored up until now, it's actually pretty chill down here in the sewers. Except for one thing. Something is down here with us, but you never actually see what or who this sound comes from. It could be a recording from some sort of homemade sound or the remnants of something roaming the sewers. But there's no time to contemplate on the origins of this sound because we have to find a way out. Even if the world is constantly trying to prevent us from finding a way out, there must be. After escaping from the sewers and afterwards some very friendly patients, we are sent using an elevator up to a very kind man named...
Hey, you're that bullshit priest's guy, aren't you? His witness or whatever. You must be exhausted. No, let's take a break, huh, buddy?
So this is Richard Trager, a self-proclaimed surgeon who is about to make our already horrible stay at this asylum even worse. By cutting off 2 of our fingers and for some reason leaving right afterwards, we free ourselves from the wheelchair we have been strapped to and must now find a way out. As we explore the doctor's twisted hospital and see what he has done to all of his patients, we make it to a vent and afterwards find a key to the main elevator. But if you think that our luck is finally getting better, then you are greatly mistaken. Because as we make it to the elevator and try to get down to the exit, we are cut off by Richard, resulting in us crushing him using the elevator. We afterwards find Father Martin, who tasks us with finding a way outside in order to get closer to something. We do this by once again traversing the broken and horrific halls of the asylum, which leads us into another grab and run segment with Chris. Once we finally find a way outside, we begin to notice that something is either observing or spying on us. I think that we can with pretty good confidence say that this is the same entity we heard making ghost-like sounds down in the sewers. A common assumption to make upon witnessing this thing is that it's hostile or at least dangerous. But to maybe a lot of people's surprise, it's actually completely harmless. A direct contrast to almost any other character we have met throughout this adventure. As we make it to the female ward and find out that this place is just as if not more messed up than the rest of the asylum, we get this interesting speech from Father Martin.
You saw the Walrider, didn't you? You're beginning to understand, but not yet. Even Abraham had to cast his eyes to the ground. But soon, this way, revelation is at hand.
It's unclear at this point of the game what Father Martin is talking about, but what we do know is that we need to make it. Wow, you really can catch a break playing this game. After receiving our now broken camera, we make it to the cathedral where Father Martin gives us one final speech before burning himself alive in true religious fashion. Upon retrieving the elevator key and escaping from Chris one last time, we now finally, after all of our struggles, arrive at the You gotta be kidding. We now find ourselves stuck in the place where all of the catastrophes and events of this game originate from. We learn down in this facility that the people working here were trying to control, or rather make, the microscopic machines called nanites. And upon talking to Dr. Rudolf Wernick, we find out that the Walrider, who we up until now only have heard or seen using our night vision, is an entity made by a swarm of these nanites. Wait, if this is true, then the very supernatural looking ghost we have been seeing and hearing throughout the game is nothing more than a bunch of tiny machines grouped together. Which would mean that there never was anything supernatural spying and looking at us. But we believed it despite it not being true. Before I keep talking about this very interesting outcome, I think that we first need to put an end to this crazy quest. Now, after finishing our chat with Rudolph, we now have to kill the host who is controlling the Walrider, who for the record is named Billy. We do this by shutting down all of Billy's life support and then pushing the failsafe button, which immediately terminates the host. Now, if we are successful in doing this, we are rewarded with this cutscene. Finally, the nightmare is over and we can now get out of this place and return home. Sure, we are a bit worse for wear, but that's not going to stop us from...
Gott im Himmel. You have become the host. Jesus God, what is that thing?
Well, that was an unpleasant surprise. Yes, if you hadn't already figured it out, there was never a way out for us. We were destined to suffer and die inside the walls of the asylum from the moment we stepped inside. Off the bad luck we have been experiencing throughout the game was nothing more than a hidden message telling us that we would never escape this place. It's all very sad to see for the first time and later talk about it. But that is not what I want to focus on. Instead, I would like to return to some of the things I said at the start of the video, with the first one being... Now, there is not much to talk about when it comes to the gameplay of Outlast. Because for a big majority of the game you are just walking around, picking up documents and recording anything interesting. But despite all of this, I still think that the game manages to create a very horrific and scary environment through all of its, albeit cheap jump scares, lack of light sources and intense music. Sure, all of these gameplay elements aren't exactly unique when we are talking about horror games. But if we consider the year that this game came out in, I think that they did what they could with the technology and horror tropes we had back in 2013 and made a pretty scary game. Plus, it's also a nice change of pace to go from the very weapon-centered survival horror games we have today to a more defenseless and simple horror game. To end this video, I want to talk about what I have been kinda hinting towards up until now. Being that nothing supernatural actually exists in Outlast and that we were never meant to leave the place alive. Now, I am by no means qualified or even educated to talk about anything that has to do with psychology, but I can give a pretty good guess based on my own experience with the game on how we get manipulated into believing stuff that isn't true. If we start with the obvious being our thoughts when we think about endings. We for the most part expect, especially with the luck our character has, that we will receive a good ending regardless of what happens in the game. This results in us making a false belief on how the game will end, because we've grown used to only getting good endings. Here in Outlast, no one receives a good ending. Everyone who enters this asylum either goes insane or dies. And this is also the way we get tricked into believing that there's something supernatural haunting us. Yes, it's never explained before the final chapter of the game what the Walrider is. But due to us comparing it with common ghost tropes, we think that we stand no chance of beating this thing because it's supernatural. Which is why the reveal of the Ghost Rider is that much more interesting when we hear about its creation. It was all set up to prevent us from using common sense and basically killing a big part of the scary immersion. All to give a well-crafted, non-supernatural horror game. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. Now if you have any ideas for any future videos, then please leave a comment about it down below. Remember to leave a like and a sub, and until we meet again, bye bye!